We begin with a Fox News alert this morning. Phase 2 of the mission to save the boys that are trapped inside that cave in Thailand is now underway as we speak.
Crews are in a race against time to bring that soccer team and their coach out after they've been trapped for more than 2 weeks.
4 of the boys were successfully taken out and taken to a nearby hospital. That was yesterday. Crews now hoping to get the rest of them out. Maybe within minutes, within hours, we don't know, but at least within 2 to 3 days overall.
Jeff Paul is live at the hospital where those boys are recovering this morning, the ones that have been rescued. Jeff, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, and it is late afternoon here in Chiang Rai, Thailand, and just off to my shoulder here, this is the hospital where those 4 boys who were rescued were taken to yesterday. They're getting care right now. We're being told they are in isolation as doctors check them out to make sure they aren't carrying any sort of diseases or have any other care that they need to attend to. Meanwhile, there is an ongoing operation right now, phase 2. They are trying to get out as many as they can today. If yesterday is any indication, that goal would maybe be around 4 people, but the Thai governor recently spoke and says that he didn't want to put a number on it, that he just wanted to see how today went. We also know that they will be using the same dive team that successfully rescued 4 of those boys. They'll be sending that same team back in. They got some rest. They, again, lined the cave, that route, with more air tanks. And we were told yesterday that every single tank that they used along that route was used. So it just gives you an idea of just how many resources are used to make sure these kids get to safety. Back to you.
Jeff, and we're hearing reports that perhaps a 5th boy has come out, maybe more on the way. What are you hearing on the ground? I know it's obviously, this is just phase 2 of the mission, and information is coming in fast and furious, but what are you hearing?
Well, if it's any indication of yesterday, if they're on sort of the same schedule, it would make sense that we could start hearing about more and more kids coming out from the cave. But that would definitely go along with that timeline. You know, yesterday they started around 10 o'clock. And we heard around 5 o'clock they had the first boy released. So it would make more sense to have an additional boy coming out today, and that would fall along that schedule.
Yeah. All right. Jeff Paul, thank you very much. You know, yesterday, Ed, we were on the weekend covering this. We anticipated maybe 1 boy coming out over the course of the show.
Over the course of several hours.
Several hours. 4 came out very quickly. Now, they say this morning that they've restaged, as Jeff Paul said, oxygen tanks, and they want to press the momentum because rains are coming. They've done it once. They feel confident about the procedures they have in place. So stick with us all morning long, because this may be the beginning of good news, we hope.
This is the cover of the New York Post this morning. You can see the 4 precious boys that have been rescued and are there at the hospital. They said they were bringing out the guys, the little ones that were the strongest, because they wanted momentum. They wanted the kids that were left in the cave. They wanted them to know that they got out safely and that they had a chance to, and they were going to get out safely.
How bold and daring it was, because Ainsley, we spoke to a former Navy SEAL yesterday who said that if they did not start this mission yesterday, with the rains coming soon, as Pete suggests, the window may close for up to 4 months, because it may be raining so much, water rising, oxygen levels going down, that they weren't sure if the boys could make it through 4 months.
Monsoon season.
So they saw an opening yesterday and struck, with the help, by the way, the Thai Navy SEALs, the help of the U.S. and Britain and other key allies. And so America has skin in the game as well.
And you talked about momentum, but one of the problems with maintaining momentum is logistics. And I know we've got a cave rescue diagram we can put up on the screen. Ultimately, this is a phased operation with different divers. This is the setup between the divers and the individual. You have 2 divers with each child tethered together, pulling on a rope line as they move through narrow passages. But it's not just 2 divers with 1 boy throughout the entire cave. I think we have another diagram of the entire cave rescue. Ultimately, they're staging oxygen tanks throughout this 2.5 miles of this cave. So as they pass kid from diver to diver, from phase to phase, divers understand the nooks and crannies and particulars of each place where they are. And now on day 2, they're hoping they can move even more quickly through a lot of these harrowing areas to make sure these boys move in that direction. But logistics get in the way, just like the military. You want to press the momentum, but if those oxygen tanks aren't full, you've got to take the time to refill them before you renew the operation.
You just want the kids that are left behind, you want them to have good spirit so they know they can do it too. When you looked at that diagram, I remember initially when we heard that these kids were trapped in the cave, why are they there? Why did the coach take them there? We'll learn more of those answers as they start rescuing them. But if you look, it's underneath this mountainous region. And if you enter the cave, you can see the entrance to the far right. And as you travel through the cave, it goes lower and lower and lower. And then as monsoon season, it's starting to fill up with water. And that's why time is of the essence. One of the parents wrote the coach and said, don't blame yourself. Hopefully they'll all get out safely and we'll learn some answers.
Some of the children, by the way, have been writing notes to their parents, and we've seen some of those. We saw some over the weekend. One said, please keep planning my birthday party. I mean, these are boys between 11 and 16 years old. These are the concerns they have. Soccer, birthday parties. Another said, I can't wait till I can eat fried chicken again. They're thinking about their favorite meals. They barely ate at the beginning. They went about 9 days, I think, without real food, and then they finally got some a few days ago. And you can see when you talk about that, Ainsley, their spirits, you know, considering what they've been through, and this is limited video we have, they do seem to still be optimistic.
Well, they're a team, and that coach is probably down there saying, right, you would know this better than I would because your experience with the military, Pete. But I'm sure he's down there saying to his team or to his troops, you know, you got to keep good spirits. Let's have a positive attitude. They're going to rescue us.
We've learned more about this coach. He's about 25 years old. He's a former monk, actually. Came out of the priesthood and is actually the assistant coach to this team. The head coach had said, take them on an adventure to build some bond. We found out they went into this cave. They went in a little too far. The rains came, but he taught them, reports are saying, meditation techniques, breathing techniques to deal with it. Obviously, he feels guilty because of the predicament. Now you have the greatest divers, cave divers in the world descending there to get them out. But I have a feeling he'll probably be the last one out or near the last one as he stays there to
Don't forget how difficult this is. A former Thai Navy SEAL who was retired 3 or 4 days ago went in there to help and died because he ran out of oxygen. So this is someone who was very experienced, certainly more experienced than an 11 or 12-year-old boy, and he died. And so that's how miraculous it is that at least 4 have come out alive.
Murky waters. You can't see. It's pitch black dark.
It's probably
cold. Who knows what lives in that cave?
Right.
You know, I mean, they haven't eaten. Limited. The logistics are impossible. It is really. This is why people are so focused on this. It's an amazing display of courage, of heroism, of the human spirit. And hopefully this morning, hopefully, God willing, we'll have more good news.
We have a Navy SEAL that's coming on, experienced Navy SEAL. He's a diver that's going to come on and tell us what they're up against. Dr. Mark Siegel was on, and he said that these kids are probably dealing with medical and with mental health issues. Maybe their age is on their side, because usually kids, there's a way that they have such a positive attitude and they look at life through rose-colored glasses. Exactly. Their ages 11 to 16. There are 8 boys and 1 coach that are still down there. The president said the U.S. is working very closely with the government of Thailand. So we will keep them all in our prayers. The president also has a big decision to make. Today he's going to announce at 9 o'clock tonight, Sean Hannity's show, he's going to announce who the Supreme Court nominee is.
That's right. It's decision day. There it is, right there. I mean, and he confirmed yesterday there are 4. There are 4 finalists left. We're told he still remains undecided. Maybe he's made the decision. If he hasn't told definitively anyone who that will be. The finalists are Brett Kavanaugh, Raymond Kethledge, Amy Coney Barrett, Thomas Hardiman. We heard many of the conservatives on the right saying all of them from the list, all of them, as Lindsey Graham has said, winning lottery tickets. Conservatives like all of them, different shades of each, but it certainly
what
will
are your
shape
sources at the Hill saying?
What people are telling me is that the president has not, as of last night, had not made a final decision, but that he seemed to be, people in his orbit believe that he was leaning towards Brett Kavanaugh, but still was very high in Amy Coney Barrett. And so she's somebody not to discount. This is the final 4, basically. And as he left his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey yesterday, he told reporters he had not made that decision, but was getting very close.
I believe this person will do a great job, but I'm very close to making a decision. Have not made it official yet, obviously. Have not made it final, but we're very close to making a decision.
How many people are you deciding between?
Well, it's still, let's say it's the 4 people, and they're excellent. Everyone, you can't go wrong. I'll probably be decided tonight or tomorrow sometime by 12 o'clock, and I think we're going to all be meeting at 9 o'clock. And we have a great country, folks. We have a great country.
And you have some of these Democratic senators who are saying he's been hijacked by the right, that the president has sort of outsourced this to conservative groups. What's fascinating about that is the flip side is this has been the most transparent Supreme Court process perhaps ever. Go back to the campaign. The president listed 25 conservatives, but people that he believes have impeccable credentials. And that's why I think you hear Lindsey Graham and others advising the president saying this is a lottery ticket for conservatives because any of the final four will be strong, not just in their view conservatives, but with impeccable credentials that will be hard for Democrats. Democrats are going to fight no matter who he picks. But it's going to be harder when you have someone like in the case of Neil Gorsuch, who even Democrats said, okay, he's qualified. You know, and so it's harder to trip him up.
That's right. And you see lobbying from the Hill, outside groups, individuals making the case for particular picks. But ultimately, a lot of it does come down to rapport between the president and those nominees. We've seen that with earlier picks. So I really do get the sense that maybe if the decision's made, it's a close one and a narrow one. And, you know, he's going to keep us all on the edge of our seats until the end of today.
Absolutely.
Thomas Hardiman he served with his sister on the 3rd U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Philadelphia. And I know that she's pushed for her brother to choose him.
Conservatives love Amy Coney Barrett, Kethridge as well. Kavanaugh's got the experience in Washington, D.C. You bring in the confirmation part of it. How difficult will it be? Of course, Roe v. Wade and the threats of moderate senators on the Republican side. Just a lot of things to balance.
People who have talked to the president tell me that he keeps talking about credentials. And so if you think about the way he thinks about military leaders, and it's Mad Dog Mattis, he's got the credentials. He's checked all the boxes. He's a real leader. Kavanaugh is somebody who, you know, Yale Law School, worked in the Solicitor General's office, clerked for Anthony Kennedy, federal judge, worked at a major law firm, you know, has sort of punched all of those tickets. Yep.
So I'd just have to see who can win, who can actually get past all the Republicans.
But he also has a long record as a result, and that could be something
that people try to pick apart.
All right, it's 11 minutes after the top of the hour. Let's give you some more headlines, and we're going to start with a Fox News alert. An Army soldier killed in an insider attack in Afghanistan has now been identified. Army Corporal Joseph Masil dying after an Afghan soldier opened fire inside an airport. He's only 20 years old, from California, had been deployed since February. 2 other service members also injured in the attack, but are expected to be okay. And the woman poisoned by that same nerve agent that almost killed her ex-Russian spy, she has now died. Her name is Dawn Sturgis, and her partner, Charlie Rowley. They were exposed to the poison late last month in England. Rowley is still fighting for his life. Police believe they came across that contaminated item that was left over from the attack on the former Russian spy and his daughter back in March. Once a Marine, always a Marine. White House Chief of Staff John Kelly, look at that, helping to fix a tangled American flag at President Trump's New Jersey golf club. Mike Huckabee tweeting, quote, "Here's one of many reasons White House Chief of Staff General Kelly is a hero to me. He earned those stars on his shoulder by sacrifice and service."
That's awesome.
And those are your headlines.
Small stuff matters, too.
It really does. It's our top story, that cave rescue operation underway. How are those divers pulling off the impossible? A retired Navy master diver who trains with SEALs in Thailand joins us live next.
Who better than that? And here she goes again. Is Hillary Clinton gearing up for another White House run?
What?
We've got some clues. And Henry is really excited about the possibility.
She likes me.
She loves you, Ed. Coming up.
Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone. I've made up my mind.
News alert right now. Rescuers in Thailand back in that flooded cave, rushing to try and save the remaining boys still trapped there for more than 2 weeks.
4 soccer players, 4 little ones, have already been safely removed, but 8 more and their coach are still inside the cave.
Dave Davidson is a retired Navy Fleet Master diver. He also participates in annual training with SEALs in Thailand and joins us now with Insight. Dave, thanks for being here this morning. So you've heard, they've looks like they've reset for another day. There may be boys. We've heard reports that there may have already been a 5th kid coming out. We have not confirmed that yet. What do you know about this operation right now, and likely what will happen today?
Well, likely what will happen today is following on with yesterday. Yesterday was successful, so they replenished, and they'll go with the same plan, I'm sure, as long as nothing's changed. Obviously, if there was more rains, more water, that could have changed the dynamics a little bit, but they've taken that into account using their operational risk management.
So, Dave, take us down into that murky water. What exactly makes this mission so dangerous?
Well, if you got water rushing in from rains, visibility is probably non-existent. The good thing is the divers that are working there are used to working in murky waters and, having no visibility. So that's not bad on them. But where it is tough is on the children. You're bringing them through, and this is all a new experience for them. And you got to worry about, tight passageways of what if the child, has a panic attack, gets very stressed and doesn't know what to do. So it'll be very difficult, and I believe that there'll always be changing dynamics as the rains come in.
And Dave, talk about momentum, because this mission yesterday was moving much quicker than anyone anticipated, and they were getting real momentum, and then you have to stop. How do you get that momentum going again today? And what if you have, these are small children, as Ainsley said, if one of them gets upset, if one of them starts getting nervous, I want to get home to my mom, I want to get home to my dad. How do you keep everybody calm and cool and get this momentum going again?
Well, the best way will be through training. What you want to do in there is we're not going to train these guys to be cave divers. So using what I said as the operational risk management, we say, what's the greatest risks? Okay, first off, we want to train these guys to be able to breathe normally in the rigs, and then explain to them exactly each phase, what's going to happen, so that when they see it, it doesn't scare them. And then go over the emergency procedures. If you get water in your full face mask, how do you clear it? Simple, lift up, push this button, get the water out, explain what to do. They need to have signals. If you're in trouble or you're fear or there's a problem, squeeze my leg 3 times because you've got one in front and one in back. But you remember, through these tight passageways, he may be between them and they can't be close and at hold.
Absolutely.
So,
Dave, we don't have much time left, but between a 1 and a 10, how difficult and complex is a mission like this?
Well, I would put it, a lot closer to 10, only in that we don't normally train in cave rescues. There are obviously cave rescues, but cave rescues for children that don't swim, no. Normally cave rescues are to go get cave divers out. Sure. So this makes it very complex.
All right, Dave Davidson, we certainly appreciate your insight this morning.
And for serving. Thank you, Dave. Well, it's the supreme decision day for President Trump, and it's down now to 4. Who will his nominee be? Someone who's been watching the court for years breaks it all down for us next.
This program is...
Members of law enforcement in New Jersey are outraged this morning over a very controversial cartoon. It depicts a young man in what appears to be KKK attire, telling his mom he's wearing it, quote, so the cops don't hassle me. The cartoon appeared in a New Jersey newspaper, the Asbury Park Press, on June 28th, and in other papers across the country. Yesterday here on Fox & Friends, a New Jersey police chief called this cartoon simply appalling.
This cartoon in no way reflects the actions of New Jersey police officers as we both know them to be. I have been working in community policing since 1988. I've been a policeman for almost 40 years. And I can tell you that on a daily basis, miracles are being performed on the streets of the state of New Jersey by thousands of officers doing thousands of acts that are almost never recognized.
Cartoonist is not affiliated with Gannett, which owns the Asbury Park Press and has defended her illustrations in the past by saying all cartoonists have enraged readers at some point. Meanwhile, Gannett tells Fox News this morning, Gannett and its publications often publish columns and editorials from outside contributors so that their readers can have access to a wide range of perspectives on local and national issues. In this case, the Asbury Park Press found the cartoon contextually relevant, as days prior, an innocent young black black man fell victim to a police shooting in Pittsburgh. The cartoons published are meant to reflect current events as expressed by the cartoonist and do not necessarily reflect the editorial stance of this publication. The cartoon was syndicated and ran in many other papers across the country. That statement from Gannett this morning. We'll stay on top of the story. Ainsley?
All right, thank you, Ed. It's decision day for President Trump, who's expected to announce his next nominee for the Supreme Court at 9 p.m. tonight. With only 4 finalists left in the running, we're breaking down the cases for and the criticisms against each of these potential justices. Here with insight, legal fellow of the Heritage Foundation and the host of the SCOTUS 101 podcast, Elizabeth Slattery. Elizabeth, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So the president's looking at each of these, and he's narrowed it down, and he has to ask himself, what are the Democrats going to say? Why wouldn't they want to vote for this person? What are the possible criticisms? So let's start with the female. That is Judge Amy Coney Barrett. What are the criticisms that could be used against her?
Well, I think the main criticism is that she's only been a judge on the appeals court for 8 months. But I think looking at her academic record, she's tackled a number of important legal topics. And so we have a pretty clear view of her understanding of the law.
Okay, what about Thomas Hardiman, Judge Hardiman?
Judge Hardiman, he has extraordinary experience on the district court and appeals court, but I think the main knock against him is simply that he hasn't tackled as many big issues that are of concern to conservatives as some of the other nominees.
I know he was the runner-up when Gorsuch was nominated, and the president's sister served with him or worked with him on the 3rd U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Philadelphia and has endorsed him. Let's go to the next one. Judge Raymond Kethledge. What do you know about him?
Well, Judge Kethledge is seated in Michigan, the 6th Circuit, and he has a strong record as a judge. He's tackled a number of issues. He's kind of flown under the radar compared to some of the other judges, so I think that may be one potential knock against him.
And Judge Brett Kavanaugh.
You know, Judge Brett Kavanaugh is really the complete package. He's got sterling academic credentials. He served on the D.C. Circuit, which has long been considered the stepping stone to the Supreme Court. But the only knock I'd say is that at 53, he's the oldest of the group, but that's really not very old.
Elizabeth, who's your favorite out of the group and why?
You know, I think all of the potential nominees are fantastic, and I think they all have great merits. But I think if I had to pick one, I might go with Brett Kavanaugh.
Right? Why do you think that?
Well, I think he has stood up for his principles. He's battle tested. He's been through a contentious confirmation with his D.C. Circuit confirmation more than a decade ago. He's written hundreds of opinions, and we have a really clear understanding of what kind of a judge he is.
What about those that are, I know they're all pro-life, but I know that Judge Barrett, Amy Barrett, she's Catholic, she's extremely conservative, socially conservative. How will that affect her when you have a Susan Collins up in Maine who has said she won't vote for anyone who could possibly overturn Roe versus Wade?
Yeah, this was something that came up during Judge Barrett's confirmation to the 7th Circuit last fall, and she explained that her personal views are irrelevant, and she's going to apply the law and interpret the Constitution according to its original meaning.
Okay, we'll have to see. We'll know in a few hours. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having
Elizabeth.
me.
Have a great day. All right, is Hillary Clinton gearing up for another White House run? The clues coming up next. And we know where you live. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell ambushed and threatened outside of a restaurant, and protesters yelling that we know where you live. Just how low will the left go? Dan Bongino on that coming up next. But first, we want to wish a happy birthday to our very own Jesse Waters. Happy birthday, Jesse. We're glad you were born.
Come on over. I just want to hear that ringtone. I like it turned up when you're blowing up my phone. Want to hear you say, come on over. Because when you tell me to come on over, I like the sound of that.
We are back with a Fox News alert. A 5th boy rescued in Thailand. This according to local reports in that area. This coming as a second rescue operation is now underway right now.
Crews working to bring more boys to safety this morning, more than 2 weeks after the team and their coach first got stuck inside that cave.
That's great news. So far, 4 of the boys were successfully taken out. We're hearing of a 5th now, reported by Sky News, taken to a nearby hospital on Sunday. Crews hoping to get the remaining 8 or maybe 7 at this point and their coach out within 2 to 3 days.
This is wonderful. Let's bring in Dan Bongino, former NYPD officer, former Secret Service agent, and host of the Dan Bongino Show. Dan, when you first heard about this and you learned that so many of these young kids were trapped in this cave, and with your experience and knowing about the waters and the monsoon season, did you think this would be possible, that this morning we would be saying 5 of them are out alive?
Yeah, thank God. It's just an incredible operation. You know, here's one of the things about water training. Let me just be clear. My training is a a small sliver of our fantastic Navy SEALs and these Thai Navy SEALs. But one of the things about water is we would do exercises in the water, Ainsley, where they would blindfold you. And you would think you'd orient yourself right away. In other words, they turn you upside down, and you're like, I'll just figure out my way up pretty quickly. You'd be shocked how in the water, when you can't see, how quickly you'll swim in the wrong direction. You'll go deeper. Think about what they're dealing with. They're not only dealing with the ability, and this was in pools where we did this training. They're dealing with blacked out water, compressed spaces, kids who haven't really eaten a meal or a hearty meal in a long time. They're probably not that healthy. This is just an incredible operation. There's unbelievable bravery here.
Yeah, Dan, they took a brief tactical pause overnight to refill the oxygen tanks, and Ed asked this question. I think it's an important one. How do you maintain the momentum? How do you restart the momentum on a complex operation like this? It sounds like they're using the same divers in the same places. The logistics becomes really important at this point.
It does, and think about the psychological impact, right, on the kids and the coach who are still left in the cave. They've seen their friends successfully be pulled out. There's probably obviously some excitement. They're looking forward to getting out of there, and then you have to take this pause. But remember, listen, slow is smooth in this, and smooth is fast. You want to be smooth. You want to be slow. You don't want to rush anything. This is an emergency, but it's not an acute emergency right now.
Yeah.
In other words, no one in there. There's not a fire in there. Thank God.
Yes.
You can take it slow and make sure everybody gets out safely.
Pardon me, Dan. We're looking at live pictures right now, and they appear to be putting almost umbrella-like objects around this tarp around this helicopter. This helicopter just landed outside the hospital we've been talking about, where the boys have been brought. So we are sticking with this to see if another boy emerges. We know from our reporting yesterday that some boys were brought by ambulance to this hospital. Others were brought by helicopter. So it's not just speculation.
Our producers are telling us now that they think the little boy is behind those umbrella-like tarps, and they're taking him to an ambulance, and then he'll be transferred into the hospital.
Because obviously they're going from a remote location. In fact, our reporter Jeff Paul on the ground was saying that he wasn't exactly at the cave, obviously, but nearby there has been so much rain that Jeff said he had mud about halfway up his legs. Gives you an idea. The region there, the specific area, is not fully developed, and so you helicopter out because you probably can't get an ambulance through that mud.
And obviously they're protecting the privacy of these kids. You saw the umbrellas move to the helicopter. It looks like hopefully that fifth boy taken off the helicopter, surrounded by umbrellas to maintain the privacy, now likely moving to an ambulance or to the most. And
Dan, to bring you back in, I mean, we were hearing in the last 24 hours that these boys, as they go to the hospital, obviously the first thing they're going to do is give them an exam physically and mentally, but that their parents may not be able to see them, we're told, for 24 to 48 hours as they fully evaluate them, download as much information. Talk about how important it is to talk to them and make sure their health and welfare is there, but also talk to them about what they know.
Yeah, that's, if that was my kid, I'd probably be bashing down the hospital door. Right? I know you're probably thinking the same thing. I don't know how well that plan's going to work out with the parents. I'm sure they're pretty eager to see their kids. But, there was a point before I was listening, before I came on, you had the Navy SEAL diver. He brought up a great point about the danger of this operation. And when he said it, it really just kind of, a light bulb went off in my head. I just can't accentuate enough how brave these guys are. In cave diving operations, you'd typically be rescuing cave divers. They're not rescuing cave divers. They're rescuing a bunch of kids who are soccer players. They could panic. I mean, there are so many different ways this could break bad. To really put a highlight on how brave these kids have been, too, in addition to the SEALs and the Thai Navy SEALs.
Yeah, as we watch this ambulance with the child, we think inside, being taken to the hospital, imagine what that little boy is thinking today.
What they've seen, what they're thinking.
Dan, in operations like this, as it goes on into the hours and the days, and there's literally, as we speak, kids in the middle of this journey through this cave with divers. But does the risk increase? I know we're hearing that the stronger boys came out first, likely to build confidence in what was happening and get their tactics, techniques, and procedures down. But complacency sets in, fatigue sets in. It's no time to sort of say everything's okay. It even gets maybe more complicated from here on out.
Oh, absolutely, Pete. And remember, a couple things here. Number one, the terrain features change. The water level's changing. These are not the same conditions they were dealing with even yesterday. The terrain features change by the hour in that region. Secondly, they took the strongest swimmers and the strongest boys first, which makes sense. Let's get everybody. Let's make sure we get the strongest ones out first. Keep the mental status of the people left behind. You don't want a failure right away. It would be devastating. So now they have to deal with the weakest boys to get them out last. So yeah, it does get more dangerous, and that's why I know we say thoughts and prayers a lot, and it irritates a lot of people on the left. I really don't care. Prayer does matter, and I think these boys and the coach could really use it.
You sure could.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We need to pray for their 8 more boys, and actually 7 more. This morning when we started the show, there were 4 rescued, which meant 8 boys were inside, but now there's 7 boys and that 25-year-old coach. What did you learn in your military training? And I know that I don't believe that this coach was in the military in Thailand, but he was a monk and he's the assistant coach. So what do you think, coming from a man's perspective who has had, people that work under you, or you've probably been a coach before, what do you tell those kids when you're in the cave with them?
Well, I wasn't in the military. I was in the Secret Service, but we do this underwater training. I was actually Fox and Friends weekend. I was using this story yesterday. And again, all of our training in water is a sliver of what these SEALs get. These guys are just phenomenal. What we used to do with this Gila dunker, it's to simulate a helicopter crash in water. And they turn you upside down. They put a blindfold on you. This is in a pool, Ainsley, a pool, not a cave. And it's light out, and you have an instructor there, and people panic. Because when you're in water, you're disoriented so quickly. I've seen guys, I think I even did it myself one time, you swim in the wrong direction sometimes and you can't see. And you think, oh no, gravity will just pull me up. And it just doesn't work that way. Now imagine that in a dark cave with no swimming experience. And some of the areas in this cave, you can't even fit an oxygen tank through on your back. You have to go one by one. I mean, the conditions are, you asked a 1 through 10 danger level, I'd say a solid 9.
Yeah, and 2.5 miles. So this is a journey, not something that you do quickly at all. Dan Bongino, thank you for your insight and your expertise.
We appreciate it
this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Good stuff.
You can't go on social media right now without seeing people say, look, we've all been focused on many people have been focused on the World Cup, millions around the world in recent days and weeks. If we can get all 12 boys and that coach out, they need to be at the World Cup finals so we can all pray with them and cheer them on, because they're the team that everybody's rooting for.
And that won't happen today, probably, right? Because if they got 4 out and it took a matter of 24 hours.
It's all speculation, but they said that they hope to go faster today for 2 reasons. The rains are still coming, so the window is getting shorter every day that it goes on. And once you've done it once, hopefully you've refined your techniques. We don't know.
But they've also said it could take up to 4 days, but it keeps changing, so we'll see.
For Dan to say there's small areas where you can't even fit through with your air. I mean, imagine claustrophobia, the fear.
So many elements.
Yeah, keep them in your prayers.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration dropping an Obama-era rule for colleges about race, now telling those schools to make the admissions process, quote-unquote, race neutral. Is this the right move? We'll ask Alveda King, the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., of course. She's coming up next.
Plus, one man running for Congress is taking his support for President Trump to a new level. Meet the man behind this campaign ad. He's building a wall. He's coming up next.
If your foundation is solid, it'll take care of itself for many years to come.
Hey, Jason, are you really going to help President Trump build the wall?
You bet I am.
Some quick headlines for you. Hillary Clinton, 2020. A new op-ed in the New York Post suggests it could happen. Michael Goodwin pointing out Clinton's super PAC is ramping up fundraising efforts to combat President Trump's policies. He also suggests she could attempt to unite a divided Democratic Party. The columnist, who's also a Fox News contributor, there's his picture. You know him well. He's going to join us later this morning with more on Clinton's 2020 prospects. And the family of a little boy who beat cancer is facing attacks from the left because they thanked Eric Trump. It started when the Tennessee family thanked him on social media last month for donating millions to St. Jude. After he shared the post, the boy's aunt says what happened next shocked her.
The hate that has come out is unreal. Now you're going to attack a charity. You're going to attack a St. Jude family, someone who went through hell for 4 years. Come on now.
Trump responding on Twitter saying in part, quote, "Thank you for your kind words. You are amazing. Sadly, nothing is off limits for some." Ed?
Story. Thanks, Ainsley. The Trump administration last week directing schools and colleges to toss out Obama-era guidelines that were encouraging schools to consider race in their admissions process in an effort, they said, to promote diversity. The president now encouraging a race-neutral admissions standard. So is this a step in the right direction? We're asking the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and a Fox News contributor. Good morning, Dr. Alveda King.
Good morning, Ed. Good morning, Fox and friends. I'm so glad you asked me that question. You know, I'm 67 years old. As a young girl into my young years, even going into college, I was taught by my dad, Reverend Alfred Daniel Williams King, my mother, Naomi Ruth Barbie King, Daddy King, my granddad, and even Martin Luther King Jr., that we are one race, one human race, one blood. And it's one blood, that's Acts 17:26. My Uncle Martin would always say, Uncle ML, I call him. He would say, we must learn to live together as brothers, and I'll add as sisters, or perish together as fools. So when we discriminate in education because of skin color, that's archaic, it's barbaric, it's wrong, but it can't so much be regulated. You can't go to the colleges and say, don't discriminate against somebody because of their skin color, because people will do things in secret if they want to do what's wrong anyway. Well, but we must treat every student as a, you know, as a human being, and we must not discriminate.
It seems like you could not possibly disagree with the idea of treating all students like human beings. It seems obvious. It's a very smart point by you, and yet the DNC seems to disagree. They put out this statement. They say the Trump administration is not just willfully blind to the reality of systemic racism, it's coldly indifferent to its destructive consequences. It's absolutely committed to dismantling any efforts to address our nation's original sin. What do you think Uncle ML, as you call him, would think about that?
Well, I was a college professor for 19 years in the 80s, 90s, and I left to serve the George W. Bush administration in the early 21st century. But during those years, I did, as a college professor, know that many of my own students, predominantly African Americans, had been disenfranchised. So I've never been colorblind. If you're colorblind, then you need glasses. We can't pretend that people don't have ethnic distinctions. Sure. But to work with college prep, it's important to do excellent college prep for every student in America, whether they are very wealthy, whether they're not wealthy, no matter what their skin color is. And there again, we must learn to live together as brothers, and I'll say as sisters, or perish together as fools. So treating all students as human beings, and that's what he would really say. Now, do you have programs? Do you have guidance? Can you be very strict on racial discrimination? Absolutely, because racial discrimination is wrong. But to legislate it, and then people who don't want to do well will find tricks and run through that anyway. We want to educate fairly all of our children. Fairly. And I believe public, private, whatever.
And treating everyone equally. Wonderful words this morning to start our week off. Dr. King, we appreciate your wisdom and guidance as always.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Meanwhile, the president just days away from meeting with Vladimir Putin one-on-one. The media, already melting down.
What do we think is going to happen with Vladimir Putin? Is he going to give him Crimea? Is he going to hand him Crimea?
God, I hope the hell not. I really do.
But doesn't it look like they're setting that up?
Going to hand him Crimea? U.S. Ambassador to Germany, Rick Grinnell, he actually has some information and insight. He's going to bring us facts. He'll join us live next hour. Plus, one man running for Congress is taking his support for the president to a whole new level. He's trying to build the wall himself, brick by brick. We'll meet him next.
Some quick headlines for you. Hillary Clinton, 2020. A new op-ed in the New York Post suggests it could happen. Michael Goodwin pointing out Clinton's super PAC is ramping up fundraising efforts to combat President Trump's policies. He also suggests she could attempt to unite a divided Democratic Party. The columnist, who's also a Fox News contributor, there's his picture. You know him well. He's going to join us later this morning with more on Clinton's 2020 prospects. And the family of a little boy who beat cancer is facing attacks from the left because they thanked Eric Trump. It started when the Tennessee family thanked him on social media last month for donating millions to St. Jude. After he shared the post, the boy's aunt says what happened next shocked her.
The hate that has come out is unreal. Now you're going to attack a charity. You're going to attack a St. Jude family, someone who went through hell for 4 years. Come on now.
Trump responding on Twitter saying in part, quote, "Thank you for your kind words. You are amazing. Sadly, nothing is off limits for some." Ed?
Story. Thanks, Ainsley. The Trump administration last week directing schools and colleges to toss out Obama-era guidelines that were encouraging schools to consider race in their admissions process in an effort, they said, to promote diversity. The president now encouraging a race-neutral admissions standard. So is this a step in the right direction? We're asking the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and a Fox News contributor. Good morning, Dr. Alveda King.
Good morning, Ed. Good morning, Fox and friends. I'm so glad you asked me that question. You know, I'm 67 years old. As a young girl into my young years, even going into college, I was taught by my dad, Reverend Alfred Daniel Williams King, my mother, Naomi Ruth Barbie King, Daddy King, my granddad, and even Martin Luther King Jr., that we are one race, one human race, one blood. And it's one blood, that's Acts 17:26. My Uncle Martin would always say, Uncle ML, I call him. He would say, we must learn to live together as brothers, and I'll add as sisters, or perish together as fools. So when we discriminate in education because of skin color, that's archaic, it's barbaric, it's wrong, but it can't so much be regulated. You can't go to the colleges and